trading currency of revenue and growth for impact and influence. Today's guest will tell us how he got there. Welcome to Decision Points. I'm Doug Hudson.
I'm Scott Wood.
Man, I'm fired up to have the CEO and co-founder of Vibe Restaurants, Irfan. What's up?
What's up, guys? Happy to be here.
I've been looking forward to this.
Likewise. I appreciate the time today and an opportunity to chat with you guys.
Let's go.
It's going to be fun.
We want to make sure that we get his fancy shoes in this. Matt, do we have his shoes on camera?
And the opening shot.
Little opening shot, little zoom into the airs. So, how are you?
I'm doing great. It's been an amazing summer, a whirlwind summer, and happy to just be back home. And even though I'm heading to Philly later today, but technically home for the rest of the summer.
Has school started yet?
No, we are, a week or so out still. So kind of the last week here. Before, actually, I love that we're going back to school because it really gets me back to my routine.
Yeah, I know.
Otherwise,
you're still in that small kid.
Like, we can go anywhere, do anything.
You're like craving some routine back.
Yes, big time. Big time.
So tell us a little bit about the summer. I know you guys took an amazing trip.
Tell
us some of the highlights.
We did. So, travel for me is a big part of my family. Growing up, we traveled a lot, so that's something we do with our kids a lot, and we look at it as a good way to educate our kids on, hey, there's a whole world out there.
Absolutely.
Besides our little bubble. So we travel extensively. This summer, we did about 30 days between Japan and South Korea.
Nice.
And it was just amazing. It was just the four of us, my wife and our two daughters, and just a great way to just see a country. We try to stay out of the main cities as much as possible.
Yeah.
So we did Tokyo for a few days, but then really spent a lot of time. I'm a big fan of the Blue Zone, so I was really curious to get to Okinawa and see what life is there, and spent a week there, and Osaka, which was awesome. And then South Korea, had never been, so we really had no idea what to expect and was completely blown away. I got to meet up with the culture, the city itself of Seoul is so advanced, so clean. They're such rule followers, so it's so cool to see that because I'm the opposite of that. Like, don't cross. I'm crossing. Just to see all of that, just to see culturally how they are. It was just so cool. And we got to meet another YPO family out there and have dinner with them, which was cool.
Yeah.
You
Randomly
can say Riz.
No, it wasn't Riz. Not in South Korea. They were there, but not with us. We met up Riz in Osaka.
Yeah.
Yeah. So another restaurant guy who I'm really close with here in Dallas, him and his family. So we got to go on a DMZ tour together.
Oh, wow.
Which is pretty cool to share that experience with another family, with their kid. And it was cool just to be able to use your binoculars and see into North Korea and just to see it with your own eyes.
What were you and your wife, what were y'all feeling when y'all were that close? I mean,
yeah, for me, there was a couple things. I definitely felt, and I generally do feel this feeling of being blessed to be an American and live in America.
Yeah.
I think people who forget that sometimes, you hear a lot of complaining or this and that, and there's certain moments, and there's definitely one of those when you're looking at North Korea and you're like, wow, how blessed am I to live in a country that doesn't have to deal with all these things that they're dealing with. I'm seeing people plowing fields and, there's no lights on at night, I hear, and it's just very basic. And to see that, and I would say the other thing,
plowing fields by hand.
Correct. Correct. The other thing that was so cool, and I've told people this, is being, having come from South Korea and looking at North Korea, it's a real life example, case study, whatever, of how capitalism and democracy can work well and what that can produce if done right. And there you see it like a clear, distinction.
It's right next door.
Right next door.
Correct. It could be all that South Korea is, but
exactly.
It's not.
Exactly. And just hearing how, South Korea, they generally want North Korea to be part of them. And there's this general love because it used to all be one place.
Yeah.
And just to hear all the stories, and it was really cool.
That's interesting.
And for my 9-year-old, for her, that's such a cool, I don't think she studied it in school yet, but for her to just see it and feel it, go walk through the tunnels that were dug, and it was a really cool experience.
How old are your daughters? 9 and
just turned 2.
Okay.
So
okay. Wow. Yeah. So what was kind of your daughter's biggest takeaway? I mean, 9's still pretty young and still trying to figure the world out, but
Yeah,
Did she have a particular takeaway from the 30 days away? And
That's a good question. I probably need to ask that specifically. If I were to guess, I think for her, it's always interesting to see how other people live. Like the little things like, hey, there's no trash cans anywhere in Japan or in Tokyo at least. And that for us was interesting as you collect trash through the day and she'd be like, Dad, where are the trash cans? I don't see them. And what we've come to realize is it's part of their culture that if you create trash, it's your responsibility to keep it till you get home.
Interesting.
And then dispose of it. And that's such a fascinating way to think,
It really is personal accountability for your trash.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think some of the other things, that now that I think about it, there was so much kindness towards us as a family in all of these countries. If we were lost, if we needed something, and I know she was really receptive and noticed that. How people wouldn't just point, like go that way. They would actually walk with us to where we were going. They would want to have a conversation with us. And, it was a very obvious thing that we took away from it.
Well, Irfan's exactly how you started this conversation. What your mom and dad, I want to get into, obviously, we'll do that here in just a second. Travel expands our perspective. It shows us there's another better, worse, different, that there's a much bigger world than the bubble that we start to shrink into.
For sure. And I talk about this a lot now with my team at work and anyone who's willing to listen. I actually think travel is the way to create peace in the world.
Yeah.
Because if you look at how conflict is created at the root, it's just a misunderstanding of one person thinking that this is the way it should be done, another person thinking, no, this is the way it should be done. And when shit hits the fan, that's when the conflict happens. But as more and more people see, well, maybe it doesn't have to be done this way. And hey, it can look like this, but at the end of the day, what travel has taught me is no matter where you are in the world, everybody wants safety. Everybody wants the best thing for their kids. And if you can keep that simple, nothing else really matters. And you start to see that the more and more you travel. So I actually think, that the U.S. government should eventually do something where they pay for young students, whether it's a high school program or a college program, where the government says, hey, as part of world peace, we're going to help you go for a week or 2 weeks to some country. You're going to get your passport as part of this, as, hey, a way to get that for you. And we're going to fund this travel. Obviously, there's some guidelines, whatever. But these people, I see them because a lot of them are my employees who work in these small towns. They're never thinking they're going to go to Japan.
Right.
But why not?
Right.
And what could that do for that person long term?
Right.
And I think really as more and more of that starts to happen, we're going to see hopefully some more peace in the world.
Decision Point listeners, you heard it here first. 2028, Irfaan Lalani for president. When are you going to run? Is that too soon? 2032?
Who knows?
I like he didn't say no. Because you're about influence now and impact, and I know that. Let's start with where were you raised? Tell us about your family. I've had the privilege to meet your wife, your brother, your mom and dad. Unbelievable story. So tell us a little bit about it.
So I was born in New Braunfels, Texas. I'll back up. My parents were born in East Africa. My mom is from Tanzania. My dad is from Uganda. My grandparents are from India. So I'm a mix Indian, East African, American. So talk about a culture identity crisis when I was growing up here, But, everything, it was all in the end a very beautiful thing coming from a family of immigrants. I learned very early on the power of hard work. As you've seen in my parents, my mom and dad to some point are still
Country
hard
burger in Dallas, Texas.
are still hard
It's
workers.
ridiculously good.
It is. And, seeing them work in the restaurant at a really young age is I would say one of the main reasons that we're successful today because we saw that work ethic. We saw what it took to be successful.
So their business is Country Burger?
Well, it was. I'll give you a little background.
So
born
the one
in New Braunfels,
Richardson?
Not the one in Richardson.
Okay.
So the original family, and we'll get into it, started in Oak Cliff.
Okay.
And so the two original Country Burger started there, and then the children of the founders then opened up, I think, Plano, Richardson, and maybe another. But they're all different, but the Country Burger in Oak Cliff is the original one.
Gotcha. Because in high school, we lived at Country Burger.
I love it.
Really?
Yes, we did.
I love it.
Well,
We
you
did.
and I will meet Faisal, his brother, and Irfan, and his mom and dad are the absolute greatest people. She is beautiful and delight. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Here's
so-
another crazy thing. Just it gave me goosebumps when you said it. My daughter spent 9 weeks in Uganda this summer.
Really?
On kind of a legal global mission.
Yeah.
And then as a family, we went to Tanzania for 2 weeks this summer.
I'm sure you were blown away,
Yes.
right? I mean, Uganda is so lush and more developed than I thought it was going to be, because we had visited, we actually were going to buy a hotel with my family many years ago when I lived in Dubai. So I would visit Uganda. I was like, man, this place is amazing. The architecture of some of the buildings, and it was really cool to kind of peel back the onion a little bit and see.
Keep going, because I want to keep peeling, but I want you to peel.
Yeah. So
keep going.
born in New Braunfels. We had a small motel there that my parents had owned. Lived in New Braunfels only for 4 years, but we had that motel for the next 20 or 30 years. My aunt ended up running it. And so growing up, we would always be in New Braunfels. So even though I didn't live there, New Braunfels has a big place in my heart, because every summer we would be there for months on end and be in the pool. And, Schlitterbahn, we would go to Schlitterbahn when it first had opened. It was a small little park. And now it grew and grew and grew to what it is today. So we have all these connections to that part of Texas, New Braunfels, San Antonio. We have our little spots there.
Love that.
Do you like Green Hall? Did you?
Oh yeah, I was just there.
I know you love music.
A couple weeks ago, we went and took our cousins that are in town to the grist mill.
Yeah.
And floated the river and did the whole New Braunfels experience, and it was I think I had more fun than they did.
I'm sure.
Great.
So yeah, grew up in New Braunfels. Eventually, my parents wanted us to be around a larger community. Our religious community was fairly small in that area, and the next big hub was Dallas.
Yep.
That brought us here. They got into the restaurant business. They ended up buying a Country Burger, not the one on Hampton that you visited, another one not too far away on Westmoreland. Ran that. That was their first business here in Dallas. And then the founder of Country Burger, who owned the other one on Hampton Road, later, many years later, approached them and said, "Hey, I've seen what you've done with this other one. I want you guys to have it." I think he owner financed the majority of it. I think they paid like $400,000 for the thing back then, including the real estate. And so that's kind of how the restaurant stuff started for the family. So, us growing up as kids.
How old were you when that went down? Do you know?
So the first one, the Westmoreland one, we had pretty much since I was 4 years old.
Okay, yeah.
Because we moved here when that started. So around 4 or 5. And then I can't remember when we got the second one, but, primarily restaurants at the beginning with the small motel in New Braunfels. So as kids, they couldn't afford babysitters. So we were always at the restaurant, babysitting. They were babysitting, working. Eventually that turned into us making drinks or maybe taking orders or cleaning tables or whatever the case may be. But I have a lot of fond memories of that time. So fast forward a little bit, they got involved in the hotel business. They started doing more of that. And really the restaurant became more of a pastime. They had a manager there for the last 20 plus years and really grew the restaurant or the hotel side of their business.
Yep.
So that's kind of the growing up. And I grew up in Dallas. I went to Cistercian, graduated in 99, then went off to Cornell. I went to the hotel school. Really thought my path would be more in the hotel development arena. I worked for JLL. I was part of their hotels team in Dubai. As part of that, as that country was really growing, there was a lot of need for.
Did you take that job out of Cornell?
I did.
Yeah. So how long were you in Dubai?
I was in Dubai a little over 4 years.
Okay.
So right when we started Vibe, that was the reason I left.
Gotcha.
And, come 2010 is when the three of us came together and Vibe Restaurants was officially started.
Okay. So what are some takeaways from Dubai?
Yeah, so Dubai, I would say there were so many as I look back. This was my first real corporate job. I had worked, but mostly in family businesses. Yeah. And so, that rigor and that discipline was very new to me, having to ask for vacation time and get told no. And, just a lot of little things that, that I had never experienced. But if I hadn't, I wouldn't be where I am today.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And just to see how a bigger company runs and just the moving parts, I was very, I was there working, but I knew, hey, I was also learning because I knew my path was always entrepreneurship, and so did they. And so they were very receptive to me learning about the business. And then the other part was being an expat was really cool. Living in a country where, you're not the citizen and there's people from all over the world that were living there was a really cool experience to just, be within that. It's a true melting pot.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. So talk to us about the beginnings of Vibe. Where are the first conversations and who are the partners?
For sure.
Kind of walk us through the early stages of the Vibe.
Love to. So early stages of Vibe. So there's 3 principal partners, myself, my brother Faisal, and Shalin, who's a brother from another mother. At this point, we've been working together for the last 15 years. So where it all started. So I'll go back. So Shalin and Faisal overlapped. They both went to UT Austin.
Okay.
Shalin is my age. He's 43, and Faisal's a couple years younger, just turned 40. Well, they overlapped. It was Shalin's maybe last year, and Faisal was just starting. But because Shalin was really good friends with a lot of my childhood friends that went to UT, there was a natural way for them to connect. So over that 1 or 2 years, they became really good friends. Shalin graduated and went and joined up with his dad, who was already a restaurant franchisee with Church's Chicken at the time, and opened up their first location together in Nacogdoches, Texas. So Shalin loves to tell the story of Nacogdoches and how he lived there, and he lived in a motel in Nacogdoches, and he ran that restaurant. And
Church's?
No, this was the Little Caesars, their first Little Caesars in
Okay.
Nacogdoches. First restaurant, and actually is still one of the highest grossing restaurants for us today.
Of course it is. Good East Texas. College town.
And I joke, but without that first one being such a home run, who knows if he would have continued or had the same vigor to grow. So all works out. So he opened that one with the idea of opening a couple more, with him and his dad, but quickly realized that, hey, if I want to continue to opening, I need to bring on somebody to help me.
Yep.
So he'd reached out to Faisal early on, maybe a year or 2 into this. And Faisal at that point had graduated, was I believe in San Francisco. He was pursuing his passion at the time in fashion.
Okay.
So Faisal, I think, forgets to mention this sometimes, but he was really all about fashion and wanted to become a fashion designer and was into retail. So he had got a job at H&M doing some kind of management in their flagship Union Square location. And he was like, there's no way I'm going to go do restaurants.
Did you FaceTime Faisal before you came here and said, was this approved or not?
No. I did not. But his approval, I don't need. It's the facts. I have pictures. So.
You're the older brother.
Exactly. But, for the first little while, he said, no, I'm doing my thing. But over time, I think he realized, entrepreneurship is the path. And the opportunity came up in Corsicana where Shalin got approached to buy the store, but it was close to Dallas. So they said, hey, Faisal, if you take on this store with me, I'll give you 50% equity for free. Deal he couldn't pass up. He didn't need to ask my parents for any money. And he could come and do this and really give him an idea if he liked this. So they bought the Corsicana store. I was still in Dubai at the time, moved back to Dallas. He would go back and forth. He was running the store. I hear stories of when they bought it, they just showed up and like, okay, everybody, we're the new owners. And it's very different from how we do things today.
I'd say so.
Yeah. But Faisal took that restaurant on and, he ran it. And he realized early on that he was a great operator. He really understood how the business worked. And so their partnership really started to flourish. Fast forward 2009-ish, they had come to visit. I had obviously been watching Faisal and their growth in this. I think they had, I can't remember the exact store number, but let's call it 6 or 7 locations open between.
Okay, so Shalin and Faisal now have 6 Little Caesars.
Correct. Shalin had done about 5 in East Texas, and then they had started opening up after Corsicana, 1 or 2 in Oklahoma.
Okay.
And at that point, they had come and said, hey, this is a great business. They had told me, the pros and cons. And really, for a good 6 months, I was kind of like, there's no way.
Yeah.
I have this great job with JLL.
Exactly.
I'm in Dubai.
I went to Cornell.
Center of the universe.
Exactly. And everything was booming there. I'm like, there's no way I'm going to go make pizza. Well, fast forward, I came home to visit, and it happened to be at the same time as this Little Caesars National Conference. So because Faisal was my brother, he was able to get me in as a guest. So I attend the conference. And
What year is this?
This must have been 2009.
Okay.
Yeah, 2009-ish. And I go to the conference, and I'm like, man, this is like the best kept secret. Little Caesars is privately held. Very little information that's known about the company and the metrics and the sales. But going to this, I'm like, oh, wow. This is a really good business. It's recession proof. This actually is interesting. So after that, my mindset shifted and it's okay, let's do this. And so we agreed to join forces. We negotiated with Little Caesars the rights for the DC, Maryland, Virginia area. I think it was a 30-store development agreement at the time.
How'd you find that market? Did Little Caesars bring that market to you and say, hey, here's a need that we have?
We went to them and said, hey, we're coming.
We want to do this.
We want to do something, but we want to do something that's a bigger market. We don't want to do a 2-store area. It doesn't make sense. So
we need scale.
Where can we scale? And this was the area they had marked off to build corporate locations. And so at that point, when we had approached them, they said, hey, there's a market. We had reserved it. Go check it out. If you guys like it, we can work something out. So I look back on that though, and I was like 27 years old. No, how old was I? We started, let's say it's 2010. Fast forward, I'm 43. So what is that now? How old would I have been? I was like 30-ish right now. I was young. I was a young buck. So the fact that they took the risk on us to give us such a big area, now that we're 15 years in, I can look back and be like, whoa, they took a big chance on us. And I actually got to meet and chat with Chris Illich recently, who is the chairman of all Illich companies, which Little Caesars is one.
Okay. His
father was the founder of Little Caesars.
Okay.
And I told him, I was like, I really appreciate you guys taking a chance on us, because he was congratulating us on, we're their 3rd largest franchisee today. And, today it looks all good, but I'm like, you guys took a big risk on 3 pretty young guys, 15 years ago.
Did he tell you, did he remember, does he
He's not involved in that.
So he wouldn't have known.
No.
He wasn't making that decision.
He wasn't making that decision.
Well, it could have been a decision too of like from a corporate perspective of like, okay, we'll let these young guys go fail or go be successful. And if they fail, we'll just take it back over. And,
absolutely.
Exactly.
But if they're successful, then, but what a great opportunity for you guys.
Exactly. And it doesn't work. I can tell you this today. It doesn't work that way anymore.
Correct. Yeah. Well, it's become too big a business.
Exactly. For the brands. I mean, they're so selective on who's getting in. And
Because, all right, so keep going.
So that was, so that was the story. So Little Caesars, so we got the rights to develop that. So my first wife and I, who had met in Dubai, we moved to DC, sight unseen. Well, I had a friend who was a realtor out there. He had got an apartment for us that I had kind of seen just on video. We got our
you
U-Haul.
all are going to move there. Shalin's going to stay in the Houston area.
So that was the plan.
And Faisal's going to stay here.
Faisal at the time was going to stay. He eventually, fast forward, does come up to the Northeast.
Okay. All right.
But that was a plan. So I remember very distinctly being in Dallas, because from Dubai we came here, packing up our U-Haul, and on the way to DC, we were opening a store somewhere in Oklahoma. It was Ardmore or Durant, I can't remember. And we stopped on the way. We helped out with the opening. We had our U-Haul there, and it was like our first foray into we'd gone through training and all that, but it was en route. We helped with this, and then we kept driving. Finally made it to DC, and really, that was the start of the growth in the Northeast. If you were to fast forward, we opened up, 20 plus locations in that area. And from the get-go, from day one, I was the store manager, leading the construction team, doing the leasing, trying to get the new store ready. So very involved in every aspect. And it was only, the way we had divided things originally, it was more by territory than by responsibility, if that makes sense, amongst the 3 partners. So, hey, Irfan, you're in the Northeast. Faisal was going to focus on Oklahoma, and Shalin was East Texas. And we were kind of the little kings of those areas. And really with Little Caesars, they saw us as 3 different companies. At that point, it was Vibe Restaurants, but legally and the way they talked to us, they would only talk to Shalin about the stores there. They would only talk to Faisal about the ones, because he was the one on the franchise agreement.
Right.
And so legally we have like 20 different franchise agreements, but we've cleaned that up and made it more manageable now. So fast forward, Little Caesars was the first brand we cut our teeth on. Fast forward, we looked at Which. We were franchisees with them for a short period of time. Didn't end up opening many stores. Wasn't the concept for us to scale. We dabbled with Pinkberry when that was a hot brand. Thankfully, didn't open any units up, but learned a lot from it. And then came Wingstop. We're big believers in looking at what our peer set is doing, and a couple of franchisees in Caesars that we know and respected were getting into it. So we have no shame when it comes to, learning from other people. And we actually promote that.
Smart. I think it's called smart.
I agree too. And so we chatted with these guys. They told us what they loved about it, got in touch with Wingstop, and really presented them our track record. We were already at that point a large Little Caesars franchisee, but we had a proven track record of operating in smaller tertiary markets. And that was our way into the brand, because they didn't really have those markets on their radar. Rightfully so. They had so much white space. They were going after the kind of bigger cities. And after presenting to them, they agreed to move forward with us. And we signed, 30 unit agreement with them, which has been re-upped multiple
So your
times since
first
then.
agreement was for 30 units
Yes.
with Wingstop.
Correct. Over, over a period of time.
All right, so a couple data points. Before you enter Wingstop, about how many Little Caesars?
Probably close to what we have today. I would say 75, 76.
Yeah, so pretty substantial.
Yes.
And what year was the Wingstop? What year did y'all start?
Yeah, we
that?
opened our first location in 2020.
Okay. So 10, 11 years after
Yeah.
you kind of got the DC metro area and
Correct.
started to build it out.
So you're at the 70 plus Little Caesars right before Wingstop. Let's talk about organization. Let's talk about roles, conversations, hard, not hard. Do you Faisal and Shalin, get in a room and say, we're all going to move here? I know Shalin still lives in Houston. How does that, when do you become CEO and the different roles happen? Am I getting too quick on that, or is that happening prior to the Wingstop?
Yeah, I would say it was prior to Wingstop, and I would say the titles had been there even prior to that. But I think we really started to step into those more when we brought on Michael, our chief operating officer.
Okay.
So that was 7 years ago. It was before we brought on Wingstop, but it was while we had Which Wich. He wasn't really involved with Which Wich by design, because we told him, focus on the Little Caesar stuff. But it was around that time when we really started fine tuning our roles to say, hey, now we have an executive that's from outside. We need to really iron out, everything. So I was already CEO before that. Faisal was always chief development officer. And at that time, Shalin was more involved in the financial. So he wasn't the CFO, but he was more involved.
He was acting like that.
Exactly.
So these are, again, our listeners own businesses. A lot of them are family businesses. You're a family and a family. Shalin's a brother from another mother. Does Cornell trump UT and you get to be CEO? Or was that just naturally, that ever a difficult conversation?
Yeah,
well, why are you in charge?
Exactly. It's a great question. It's something we joke about, but really these titles got divvied up based on our own, our skill sets and also what we wanted to do.
Okay.
And I joke that Faisal got the thing that was left over. So like I'm the people person, I'm the relationship guy. From day one, I've always been the face of Vibe. And so it kind of made sense for me to take on that role. Sean has always been the numbers, accounting, finance guy.
Yep.
So from day one, when we didn't have any restaurants or any real title, he's always been in charge of finance and accounting. I've always been in charge of the relationship part, and Faisal was always in charge of real estate and construction. So when it came time to formalize the titles, it kind of made sense to use that.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where those came from.
So those were never really difficult conversations because you had worked enough with each other. It really just labeled what the function you'd already been playing.
Exactly. And we've kind of, I've seen like Faisal wouldn't want to be a CEO.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't want to be a chief development officer. So there's not this desire for anyone to have anyone else's job.
Right.
Now I wouldn't say they're tough conversations. Now the exciting conversations as we now go into this other phase of development and growth and enter into a whole nother ball game in terms of the size of our company is the conversations we're having is, okay, when is it time to bring on another chief development officer or another CEO or another, those types of conversations.
Right.
So
a leader of one of the brands in particular.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Could be that.
Who's operationally in charge?
Yeah.
Right. Like, so, making sure that all the stores are
For sure.
operating efficiently.
Yeah. So our company, the main person to answer your question is Michael, our chief operating officer. So I joking and not joking, say, hey, our 150 something restaurants, I don't worry about them opening and closing every day because that's 100% Michael. So the day to day, any of the departments, any of those types of things, Michael runs that fully, which gives me so much freedom and so much peace in my life because the restaurant business is tough and there's so many challenges and there's so many things happening, and he does a really good job of insulating in some way. And of course I'm in the loop, but he does a really good job of running the business like it is his own. And it is, he's vested, he's got equity, and it's one of the most critical hires that we've ever made. And I'm a big proponent of telling people, get a COO.
Yeah.
Yep. So what is the leadership structure now? How many people report to you or Shalin or what is the leadership structure?
Yeah. So we have the executive team, which would be Shalin is our chief investment officer. He's got no direct reports anymore. Shalin's role is really morphed into the CFO for the owners.
Okay.
And so you guys can see in some of the work we're doing with you, he takes the lead on stuff that involves the owner's money.
Yep.
Which is it's amazing to have somebody like him.
Yeah, absolutely.
Amazing. Because I always know there's always somebody who's going to be watching that.
Yeah.
And I can focus on the parts I'm good at.
Correct.
And he's always going to be on top of the numbers and lets our CFO do his job, but there's always somebody to make sure we're not going to make a huge mistake, you know?
Yep.
So that's Shalin, no direct reports. Faisal, Chief Development Officer, has a very large team now. As we grow into, 40 plus Wingstops a year is kind of what we're growing towards. He's got, 6 or 7 people, senior people that work with him. Then you have me. My only report is Michael.
Okay.
So I have one direct report and one attorney, outsourced attorney who works with me on a regular basis. And then Michael, pretty much everybody reports to him. So he's got brand VPs below a VP for each brand. So they report to him, and then the VPs of each of the departments of HR, marketing, learning and development, and our CFO also report to Michael. So he's COO and president.
Okay.
Because of the CFO part.
That's amazing. How big is that team? How many people at Vibe?
In terms of that executive team, there's 5.
No, the whole
I would say if you would look at the whole, if you look at the executive team and the support team, really everybody who's based in Dallas, we're 30 to 40 people. But if you, really because of our geographic stretch of where our restaurants are, we're in 13 states, really the bulk of our people are in the field. So, and that's where we want them to be. All the directors and the area coaches. And so, holistically, if you take that along with all our employees, we're hovering at around 3,000 employees today.
It's incredible. All right. There's a statement on your website that says, focus on impact and the numbers will grow. Why is that there? What's that mean to you? How's that get played out?
Did you come up with that?
Not the exact wording. I think Emily and their team did, but this really goes to the root of the founders and when we started Vibe Restaurants. If you look early on when we were the decision makers in the restaurants and we were running the restaurants and the coaches were reporting to us, it was a real family. We would help them out. We would give them loans when they needed. When they got in a bind, we were there to help them. Obviously, they were respectful and usually would give us our money back. Usually not always, but that was okay too. But we always treated it as, hey, this is going to be, we're going to make you feel important, because at the end of the day, we knew they were working for us and providing our families with something good. And so we've been very, what's the word? We've been very, it's not strict, but we've been very intentional about keeping that alive at Vibe. And so when the comment about impact, what that means to me and how we're seeing that come in is really this people first mentality. So not only looking at, hey, the basic things that we do for our employees, healthcare, 401k, all those things, which I believe are just standard today, but even taking it one step further in terms of their development and working with Rand and his team to say, hey, how can the Stegan come in and do stuff with our executive team? And then at the other layers, how can we get all that integrated together? How can we start providing, through the Vibe Fund, scholarships and ways to get people educated? And my vision long-term is to say, hey, how can we really create loyalty and excitement in our employees? We can do things for them, but imagine you were able to impact the children of your employees. And so that's kind of where my head at's lately. And a lot of my thinking is, okay, around early childhood education. I'm a big believer through my community and my faith. They really talk a lot about this, but that early childhood education is the place to focus to really see a shift in somebody's trajectory in life. And so as I think through that, I'm like, well, my employees have kids, and I'm sure those employees don't want their kids maybe working the same job they're in. And so what if we could start talking to and putting resources and programs that impact the kids? Imagine how happy your employee is going to be. And so we're looking at programs like Play Wisely is one where my own 2-year-old goes to, and it's a 30-minute a day type thing. So like, hey, maybe that's something we can start offering our employees' kids.
Yeah.
So really, that's really the impact, because that's really what that's the thing that differentiates us from all other restaurant groups. Because we pay market, we pay more than market, but money at the end of the day is not what's going to get someone to stay. And we relearned that very early on, and now we're really leaning into that.
You answered it, but I want you to keep going. That's a powerful statement you just made, that most of us humans, me at the top of the list, we may not be dumb, we might just be slow. Money is not the most important thing to get them to stay. What are other things? Speak to that for a second, Irfan. What are those things?
Yeah,
Go.
for sure. So yeah, I realized for myself and for our employees, okay, money is important. You need it. It's there. We shouldn't not recognize it. But the things that matter, that get them to stay, are feeling important. You know, when I hear, I'm really, really cognizant about asking my team for feedback on stuff that happened in the field or on their team. You know, every week I'm peppering them like, hey, who do you want to recognize? Because I want to then go and reach out and send a text or a phone call. And it's so cool, because I'll have dinner once a quarter with everybody, and I'll hear from somebody who I called or texted. They're like, you have no idea how bad of a day we were having that day. Or, you know, that text, I've never got a text from a CEO. I printed it and I put it in my office wall, or I showed it to my parents, or I showed it to my wife. And I'm like, man, that makes you want to keep doing these types of things,
right.
you know? So just that recognition. And then the other piece that I'm starting to lean in more, and all of us are, is when you show an employee that you care about them more than just what they're doing for you, because when you're investing in them, they could take whatever you're pouring into them and go somewhere else, and that's okay. But the idea that we're willing to pour into them has now, you know, it's now showing that that's why we're able to do what we're able to do, is because we're seeing the fruits of that now.
So how do you get, you know, with 3,000 employees and 150 stores and multiple geographies, how do you get this vision of culture down all the way through, you know, the line worker at the restaurant and your most remote location out there?
That's a great question. So I'll answer it in two pieces. I would say the tactical piece I'll address, but then at the top, from the executive team, from the three owners, Michael and Jeremy, we have to breathe these values every day. And if they see us going in any direction, like, we have to almost do it even more so, because as you guys know, it kind of cascades from there.
Absolutely.
So if I'm doing something that's not acting like an owner, or if I'm making it not fun for everybody, or I'm not acting in a team-like environment, or I say something, and I've been told this afterwards, I have to be very careful what I say in board meetings, because it could be like I talk to my partners in one way that I can, but if I say that in a board meeting with everybody there, it can be very damaging. A small little, oh, I'm not happy about this, or hey,
Right.
you know, the way I ask a question. So I have to be very cognizant of the way I talk. And so it starts with the top. We have to make sure we live our values, that those are real for us. And then logistically, we've had to work on, hey, what are the logistical ways to cascade that? You know, Michael and his team have been great culture builders. I would give him all the credit for building the great culture, or cascading the culture effectively. But we've also had him bring in resources like Emily, who you guys have spoken to, who does this for restaurant groups. They're really big on branding, the vibe branding, but then also bringing the great culture and bringing that to life in the restaurants, but then also on social media. Because what we've seen, because we're very active on LinkedIn, we're recruiting and attracting talent that we would never thought would want to come work for us, because we're able. It's always been funny to me, like, if you have this great culture, shout it from the rooftops, because you want people to know about your culture. And so we're starting to see people that are really senior at companies that are maybe getting to corporate, or whatever they went there for, is they're not feeling that anymore. They're looking to come to us because they're like, oh, that's the reason I got excited to work for X company 20 years ago. And so I've seen it in our VP of Learning who just joined us. We're in talks with what will be hopefully a VP of Technology, that are just big heavy hitters, and that the main reason they're coming to us is for our culture. And we don't have to sell it to them, because they see it. You can't make it up if you're constantly talking about it, you know?
What are the core values?
Ooh, good one. The core values are act like owners, win as a team, have fun. And the one I want to add in there that I'm going to work on, Michael, is be kind. This was something I recently went to the Berkshire Hathaway meeting, and Warren Buffett ended his talk with everybody, just be kind. And that really resonated with me because if you think about it, it's a simple thing, so simple, but so true.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, I'm going to weave that in. So maybe today's like the first part of that.
I want to compliment you somewhere there, Irfan. I don't know if you know what you just said, but I think it's a bit of your secret sauce as a leader. What did you just say about Michael?
That he lives all these values.
No, you said about be kind. What'd you say?
I haven't told him this one yet, or I'm going
to talk with Michael about that. You didn't say, I'm going to tell Michael we're going to add be kind. I think that's your spirit of collaboration. And we had another guest, Steve Van Amberg, just talk about, I just want to affirm that. I think that's incredible. That's out of the heart, out of the mouth speaks the heart. And you could have said, yeah, I'm going to go tell Michael, we're going to add be kind. You know what I mean?
Sure.
But you said, no, I want to work on Michael about adding that because you understand you've delegated to him to create the culture of the organization. So I think those are little nuances that I think are really, really powerful. You have the authority to say we're going to add that.
Thank you. No, and Michael's Michael's done a good job of coaching me. I tell him all the time, like, even though he reports to me, I learn a lot from him. And so we're big on lion leadership in our company. And he's always, he hasn't told me this, but I hear him talking, and I read the book that he recommended, and it says, hey, think about the lion in the forest. The lion doesn't have to go around telling everybody he's the lion. Everybody he can see he's the lion, So I think about that all the time, and I'm like, everybody knows I'm the owner. Everybody knows the CEO. I don't need to go pound my chest.
That's right.
And it's worked out really well because it helps keep my ego at check, keeps everybody humble, and
Well, Irfan, these are nuggets you keep dropping. Who said because someone reports to you, you know more than they do?
Yeah, in most cases you don't.
You don't.
Right. I can 100% say I don't.
And that's that lifelong learner.
Yeah.
The greatest, most successful leaders understand he or she must be learning at all times from anyone in the organization, outside the organization.
100%.
Yeah.
So that kind of gives, I think, going back to one of the questions about the org chart and, that's kind of how we filled it out. And Michael has really been good about keeping us, teaching us that we have to stay ahead. Early on in our journey, we were really scrappy, so you couldn't afford to be ahead.
Yep.
But as we upgraded our talent and went from, a director of operations to a real COO, we started to learn that, hey, if we know we're going here, let's get the manpower, let's get the processes, let's get the people in before, because it makes life so much easier. So Michael spent the first couple of years cleaning up and, getting everything where it needs to be. But now, if you see where he's going, I mean, the guy doesn't say no to me with acquisitions. We're confident, not confident. We're in the process of signing our next round of stores with Wingstop, which would be, a really big deal for us and really get us to a point where we're opening, 20, 30, 40 stores a year in our portfolio.
Did Michael say no to you before, like when he first got there? Because
no,
there needed to be some.
I think we had an understanding. Yeah, right when he came on during that transition period, we were on pause, but we were not pedal to the metal.
Right.
Yeah, you had to professionalize some things, secure some things, stabilize. Put talent in place.
But it sounds like Michael's the kind of guy that will raise his hand and say, "No, we gotta."
Oh, for sure.
We got to hit the pause button here.
Michael and Jeremy, our CFO, both are, and I constantly tell them, hey, I want you to tell me that. Please do not be yes people.
Yeah.
I want to hear your, whatever you have, because that could be a blind side for me.
That's right.
We don't want to make a mistake and then afterwards like, oh, but I thought I should have said something.
Right.
Just say, it doesn't mean though that we're going to agree.
Right.
Because this sometimes comes up on valuation discussions on when we're buying restaurants, but we want to hear what you think. We're going to take that into consideration, and then we're going to make a decision when it comes to certain things.
So what's your strategy now for kind of the go forward with growth? You just mentioned you're about to do another deal with Wingstop potentially, and then I know you've bought some restaurants as well. And so how do you guys think about the next leg of the growth?
For sure. So no, we're really blessed. We have 3 great brands in our portfolio: Little Caesars, Wingstop, and Whataburger. All, iconic brands. And really, because of the amount of white space we have with our brands, we really aren't currently really looking for any other brands actively. You never know. Our phone rings every day, but we're not actively searching for anything because we're content.
Yeah.
And then there's a whole nother conversation. And that's something that we, as 3 owners now, start asking ourselves when new things come up. Why? You know, why do we want to do this? Why do we want to do this? So we have a platform. We have this restaurant platform now that's, you know, really firing on all cylinders. So going back to your question, where do we see, you know, we really see Wingstop is really the darling of the party right now. For those of you who, you know, listen to the stock earnings, you know, their Q2 earnings were insane. You know, 20-something% sales store, same store sales increases. They revised their projections on domestic units from 4,000 to 6,000.
Wow.
And they've also, in this announcement, have announced a path to a $3 million AUV from where we are today at $2 million. And so for us, Wingstop, we're doubling down on the brand because it's such an anomaly. It's such a great brand with all the right things that you just don't see all that I've never seen this in my career.
What do you think makes it so successful?
Yeah, there's so many things.
And what's AUV?
Yeah, average unit volume.
Okay.
So the average restaurant is making, you know, revenue-wise.
So going from 2 million to 3 million.
Out of, you know, in some cases, you know, 1,500 square feet.
Right.
To even smaller with our, you know, delivery only and delivery and carryout only. So it's crazy out of that small square footage. You know, what's the magic with Wingstop? I would say their team. They've got a fantastic executive team. They're publicly traded, so that gives them access to capital that other brands don't. Their product, for those of you, I mean, you're here in Dallas, so you've definitely had Wingstop, but it's a craveable product.
Yeah.
When you talk about Wingstop, when you see the commercial, your mouth salivates and you want Wingstop. Mine is right now. And then I would say lastly, they're focused on operational excellence. They know they're selling a product, you know, average ticket's $25 to $30, so it's not cheap, but they know people are willing to pay if the product is good. And so they're very, very close to our business with scorecards and metrics and ranking us and saying, hey, if you can't operate at a certain level, you can't grow anymore. And I haven't seen that in other brands where they're that clear on that direction.
Yeah. Yep.
And the proof is in the pudding. I mean, that's why they're the darling. That's why their sales keep going up, because they don't mess around when it comes to operations.
Yeah, that's great.
And then Whataburger, the last one. So continue to grow Wingstop, really put the pedal to the metal. And Whataburger, we're fairly new to the brand. We are developing Oklahoma City, but we love the brand. You know, being from Texas, it's just, we feel privileged to be part of it. Now we know them. It's a real it's like working with family. They really treat their franchisees and everybody like a family. There's only 10 franchisees in the Whataburger system.
Wow.
So it's pretty small.
Wow.
It's a little club, maybe 11 now, but pretty small group of people. And so we look to also explore, you know, growing that as the right opportunity comes.
Were you all the 10th?
That is a good question. No, there were actually, I should know this. I think we were 8.
So does that mean that like all their
us.
other stores are corporate, or does that
Majority.
the majority are corporate?
Yeah, I would say out of the 1,000 something, close to 900 are corporate
So
owned.
90% are corporate
90%, and they're not slowing down. They're going to continue to open corporate locations.
Why did a brand like Whataburger decide to franchise at all?
Yeah, so it's a good question. They're franchising, but unlike many other franchisors, they're still growing corporate stores at a much higher clip. I think for them to get market share, to expand in new markets, they do see the advantage of spreading the risk a little bit. And so they're able to develop in multiple states. But it's been very interesting to watch how many corporate locations they're building. The cultural relevance of Whataburger, I've just, you know, from growing up here, so obviously I knew it, but now seeing what a cultural icon that brand has become and how much power that brand has. You know, I see it firsthand when we open stores, when we're doing groundbreakings, and just the fanfare that comes out. So it's been really cool to see, you know, when I wear my Whataburger swag, how many people get excited, and all my friends.
Where can I get it?
That's all they want from me is swag. Man, I can get some kind of discount code or something to just give out to people. But no, it's been great. We feel blessed to be part of Whataburger and all of these brands.
Yeah.
And the plan for now is to keep buying and growing. You know, we're acquirers and builders. So we're very unique. You know, some groups are just acquirers, some are just builders. We do both very well. And so that's been part of our strategy, to buy in markets and then build out.
What are the opportunities that come up from a buy Is it just a franchisee that's sort of
Yeah,
been
we're
doing it a long time and they're ready to transition? Or?
Yeah, generally speaking, they look to Vibe as part of the full cycle for them. So generally speaking, restaurant owners don't have 401ks. They're not maybe saving for a rainy day. And so we're part of that exit for them to retire.
Yeah.
And we've built up a really good reputation in our brands. And so generally speaking, they're coming to us. We don't usually work with any business brokers. And the best thing actually is the brands oftentimes will introduce us to people where they think there's a good fit.
Yeah. Yep. And then do y'all have certain geographies that you're focused on, or you're really open to any geography if from a purchase perspective?
Yeah, I would say I'll answer that two parts. So with Wingstop specifically, we want to try to focus in our markets that we currently operate in. Generally speaking, though, we are agnostic on where we go. There's certain states that we don't want to go to that are not business friendly.
Right.
But we've proven in the Nebraska market, in Knoxville, in Greenville, many, many markets where we'll go in, we'll buy one restaurant, and then we'll open 8 or 9 and develop a market and put a team in place. So really, we can go anywhere.
Mm-hmm. Great.
How do you, Shalin and Faisal, think about the next 3 to 5 years? What problems are you all trying to solve for? What opportunities are you trying to get to? Do you all talk about exit, what it would look like, what it would take, why?
Yeah, all of the above we talk about on a regular basis. But the things that we're thinking about, we're young. And so we've determined, hey, more than likely, when we're going to exit the whole thing, not one brand at a time. When we're out of the restaurant business, we're out.
Yep.
And so right now, the focus is on growth. We have this huge amount of white space, so it doesn't make sense for us to exit right now either. And so really the focus is on, hey, investing in the people to make sure we have the infrastructure to take this on effectively. Mm-hmm. So being very thoughtful and very... what's the word? I'm the cheerleader to Michael to say, hey, go get those people.
Yep.
We're getting the playbook and it's okay. We're going to have to pay a little bit for it. But in the long run, it's interesting because the rate at which we're growing, we can't hire enough. Because we're just constantly adding more revenue, and so we're really doing a good job filling those positions. So really looking at that, and then also looking, and Michael and I had this conversation the other day, the business is less about the owners now and the founders. And so we're talking about, hey, how do we maintain and preserve the history, but also make it not about you guys anymore.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And so we're actively thinking through that. And it's a great conversation. And so just getting out of the way in a lot of ways is things we're talking about. On the back end, we're just making sure all of our ducks are lined up so that when there is an exit, we're prepared through exit planning, through making sure we're getting to know investment bankers from now, and just learning. We're always learning about other people's exits. We're tracking what these restaurants are selling for and the multiples, and we have a really good pulse on all that. So just relationship building that will be useful down the road, I would say.
Yep.
Is there a number that you guys feel like you need to get to from a size and scale, from a restaurant number?
No, we used to, but we kind of blew through all those. Yeah. We had this goal of $350 million by 2028. I realized quickly after saying that we were going to hit that way quicker and that it was kind of boxing us in. So I worked with my coach who had worked with my team to come up with this. I'm like, I've been accused of changing the goalpost too many times. I don't want to just change it. What's a good way to explain this? So through that conversation, all we needed to do was add the word and beyond to our goal. And so it's 350 and beyond. So that doesn't mean we're going to stop at 350 and we're probably going to get there sooner. Mm-hmm. And so to answer your question, I don't know.
Yeah.
We have decided years ago that we aren't going to take on an equity partner. And so because of that, there are some, we do have, restrictions on capital. So it's not like we can, go quickly forever.
Right.
But right now, the way things are sitting and the way the business is, we have no need to bring on any outside capital and can use our debt partners and continue to.
So you're doing this with
growth.
all debt, correct?
All debt. Yeah. There's only the 3 owners or the only 3 equity holders.
Yeah.
Which we're very proud of because there are not many groups.
One debt partner, 3 debt partners? How do you all view debt?
Yeah, those are right now. We usually historically we've had 1 per brand. That's kind of our ideal. Okay. In this case, we have 1 with 1 bank, and then we have the other 2 are with 1. So 2 lenders primarily.
Yep.
And I would imagine those relationships can continue to grow and expand too as you got and grow with you, and probably want to.
For sure. And we're learning a lot about debt syndication, and that's opening up a lot of new avenues for us as we continue to grow. So it's no longer become a bottleneck for us there.
That's huge.
It is.
It took you a minute to get there, I would say.
Oh, for sure. I mean, people ask the early days, it was SBA, community bank. If the local city had pretty much if anyone was willing to give us money, we would take it, and paid it back, and it was all good.
But obviously you, Faisal and Shalom, decided it wouldn't be equity, it would be debt, and you'd figure it out.
And it has not been an easy road to go down because there's been so much activity with private equity, and they throw these numbers out at you, and you can envision life with all this cash. But at the end of the day, we want to maintain control. I don't want to have another boss. And we really know that, we have a good thing here with the three of us. And the unknown of having another partner at the table could be good, but it also could be bad.
Yeah.
And so we've been really cognizant to say, we're not going down that path.
My sense is that if you guys ever get to that point, it will be obvious that you need to take that next step.
For sure.
Right? Like you'll get to a point of pain. At True North, we took a minority partner earlier in the year, and we contemplated that for 4 or 5 years, and we finally were like, okay, we need to do this.
Yeah.
And we're only 4 or 5 months in at this point, but it's been the best decision we've made in the last decade. And so I think you'll get to a point where you'll be like, okay, in order to go climb the next mountain, we've got to take this next step.
For sure.
And I think obviously you'll course correct me if I miss it. For us, it was not just capital, it was some
strategic
expertise that you and Mark were wise enough to say, hey, we've knocked on this door for 4 or 5 years. We haven't quite unlocked it. So it's the money plus the strategic expertise.
Yeah, and I would say it was really less about the money and more about the expertise.
For sure.
Of course, exactly.
And we're seeing, it's really cool to that point. We're seeing other groups, whether it's, bankrupt companies that are maybe going through troubles or other growing franchisees or whatever the case may be, they're reaching out to us for advice and say, hey, can you help us with this? So it's been a very cool place to be in that advisory role at this point too. So on that one thing, I know we're getting short on one thing that keeps me excited that we're working on that I think is so cool is the city of Dallas, I don't know, maybe a year ago the mayor had announced that he wants to position Dallas as the franchising hub of America.
Interesting.
And so through that, they appointed somebody who's familiar with franchising, an attorney, who then approached me and said, hey, we want for restaurant franchising as one of these verticals in franchising, because they want to highlight all different types of franchises, but specifically for restaurants. And this initiative, they reached out to us to be their partner, to be their industry partner, their thought partner. And so all of a sudden we're providing them with content for Franchising Week that's coming up. But the coolest part is that we're also, through this partnership, they've teamed up with UNT and Dallas College to create, first step would be like a 1 week, call it like multi-unit restaurant boot camp, where people like in my company or others that run multi-unit management programs could send their people for a week.
Yeah.
So we helped devise a curriculum, but that curriculum is going to be the basis to what will hopefully come out as the first ever college accredited multi-unit restaurant college program.
Wow.
And
Very
so
cool.
college kids will have an opportunity to say, hey, I want to learn more about this industry, because if you fast forward today, and this will continue to go up, a really solid multi-unit area manager, area coach for us, a couple years out doing a great job can make $200,000.
Yep.
And so this is a real path to financial independence. So I'm really enjoying that the university is now really getting involved with this, and to be part of that, and for Vibe to have their stamp on that for our legacy and for so much. It's a very
awesome.
powerful thing.
Well, I love that you went there. And in our final few minutes, Irfan, we met several months ago in the office, and you just started to share your passion and feeling a sense of calling, that your real purpose is shifting more to influence and impact because of the tremendous team and leadership that you all put in place. Kind of wrap up our time talking about what's that look like for you. I know you're in early phases of that. I teased about you running for office, but why are you there? You're a young leader. Why are you there so quickly? And talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. That's a great question. And I would be remiss not to start with this part of it. It would be unauthentic. I think the reason I'm able to now shift my focus is because the team is doing a great job and the business is financially very stable. If that wasn't there, I wouldn't have the mind space, and I haven't had the mind space. It would be
poor stewardship.
Exactly. So, first and foremost, that has to be there for me to create the mental capacity. And I've started to realize my relationship with money has also changed. And I think you guys actually made this comment, like in an exit or whatever, when you get liquidity, you're getting more of something you already have. And that stuck with me. So I'm like, yeah, that's right. So I shouldn't be waiting for when I have all this liquidity to do X, Y, Z. And so I really made a commitment to say, hey, okay, I'm trading in what before, revenue or growth. Those were kind of that was my currency. Those types of things. And now I started to realize, like you had said, it's really about my influence and my ability to get, to move the needle on certain things. And how can I really lean into that? So one great example is with Vogel Alcove, an organization I'm very passionate about. I'm a board member this year. And I really saw them and I was like, man, how can Vibe help? And so I started talking to Wingstop charities, and just through a couple email conversations, they got a $5,000 grant. I was like, well, so this is how this influence thing works. Okay, I'm starting to get
I write a letter, make a phone call, and
things happen.
Yeah, and then the next week, the mayor's office reaches out and they're saying, hey, now help use your influence to help us create this amazing event, Dallas Franchising Week. That's going to be great for Vibe. Okay. Then, hey, use your influence to now help us curate this program for the university. I was like, okay, I'm feeling it, but I've allowed I've allowed the universe to give this to me, and I'm more receptive to it. Now, this probably was always there, but now I'm receptive to it. And it's so crazy. Things just keep popping up every day. There's stuff popping up that really fits into what I'm focusing on and what really what is my passion and what's driving me nowadays is really being, looking for those triple wins. And the more I talk about the triple win, the more they happen. And fast forward, the Franchise Times magazine with my picture on it, they didn't say triple win, they called it a triple threat, but they highlighted the triple win in the article. And I was like, man, and I hear my employees using the word triple win. So I'm like, the more and more I live this life of looking for those triple win opportunities, it's spreading it to the team. And so that makes me really, really excited.
Describe for us the triple win.
Yeah, the triple win. So historically, people look for, let's just use the employee-employer relationship. Right. There's a win-win. You come to work, you do something for me, I pay you, it's a win-win. Well, now I'm starting to say, hey, that win-win is not enough anymore. The triple win is when you add the third win. In this example, it would be, hey, we're going to invest in your development as a leader. We're going to help with your children's education. We're going to offer you're going to go somewhere on a plane ride because you've never been on a plane in your life. So you're going to go to this conference, and so that's where you introduce that third win. And when you have the triple win, it's noticeable how much more success comes from it.
Yeah. Awesome.
Part one. Irfan, thank you.
Appreciate
really
it.
proud.
This was awesome.
The people you are.
Yeah.
Ton of credit to your mom and dad, to you and Faisal and Shalan. Thank you for spending time on Decision Points. Have a great day.